This is Paul Shannon's 6120 56, part 3. The extension wings are cracked. It's had a neck break, and this piece of green tape is holding everything together. No, actually, it has a brass nut, and you have the neck off like this, and you're doing frets and stuff. It's always a good idea to tape that baby on because they have a tendency to fall off. If you look, there's also a delamination right here along with the crack, so it's going to be important, even though Paul wants this back by Thursday. Wow, the guy's even got clamp marks in there from when he put it together. It's pretty pretty amateur there, whoever did this. I hope I'm not insulting anybody I know. But I'll tell you one thing, I can see it right now. I'm pushing this and it's going down. So somebody did a real crappy job putting this thing back together. These are all going to come out. I'm going to glue these extension wings. I'm going to clamp it. I'm also going to glue here, because the head plate does give it structural stability. If you look, here's actually a head plate. You can see its thickness. Not a whole lot of strength, but anytime you put wood and glue together, you get a lot of strength. What's going to happen now is I'm going to yank out all these frets. Judd asked a question about the holes I drilled for the steam, what I was going to do, and I filled them in. If you look at the fret wire I'm going to be using, it's all covered up. And what I did to get the color right, since this is this could be like a Brazilian rosewood with that big black streak in it, took some ebony and I took some babinga, and I used more ebony than babinga, and I scraped it with a razor blade. And I got a mix that looks like that. As I said, this is at a fret job before. The weird thing is the part where they carved out of the binding don't really match up to the center of the fret, which is pretty bizarre. So yeah. So let's take a couple out. You don't just yank them. You know, like I said before, these become really flat once they're depressed to the point where it gets under the fret. And all you got to do is squeeze it, and it gets under the fret. You pull a little upward pressure, and they just fall out. And that one literally fell out with a bunch of funk left behind. I mean, that one literally just fell out. Oh no, I'm sorry, this is on tape. These frets are a bitch getting them out. Yeah, they're just... Wow, there's nothing left of that one at all. Okay, so all the frets are out. Paul wanted to keep the fretboard deformities there. I did have to go over... I did determine... Why do I have these? Well, I have these to determine certain things. And one is what radius to put on the frets after it's done. And believe it or not, this is probably one of the best vintage boards I've ever seen, where it is pretty much 9.5 all the way through. You know, there's been discussion about what you use. Some guys like to use a flat board. I don't understand that. I really don't understand that. If you have a board that has a 9.5 degree radius, or not degree, but 9.5 inch radius, when you put the frets in, it will automatically take that shape. But then you want to match that exactly. So if you take a flat, this is curved. I mean, this is a little exaggerated, but putting a flat file on this means, I mean, the definition of a curved line is infinite number of straight lines. Understood. But why wouldn't you want a board with sandpaper on it, similar to something like this? It says, wow, 9.5. And use that, keep it exactly 90 degrees, and go back and forth this way to get a perfect radius on the tops of your frets. I don't know, I guess I don't think right. So fret wire comes pretty much straight. I'm going to turn the camera a little bit this way so you can see this thing here. And I use this to bend the wire. I overbend it so that the edges go down, the sides go down. That is my condensate pump on my air conditioner. So when you put this in, it's a little proud on the top, so when you hit it in with a hammer, it flattens out pretty well. So, you know, the next step is to have a fairly good pair of dikes or something like that, wire cutters. Cut the frets. And all the frets are cut and lined up, which makes sense because they're not all the same size. Next thing is we have these ridges, like I said, where the frets didn't go to the edge of the binding. So you take a razor, just a regular old razor blade, number 9 razor blade, and scrape the binding and make that flush. Because if it isn't flush, what happens is, go over a little bit. If it isn't flush, what happens is the fret on the edge will stick out proud a little bit, and you'll have a gap in the board. And I know Paul didn't really want the fretboard radiused or anything, but it was important to go over it one time lightly so that this 9.5 radius is maintained. And if it's not, then there's a whole issue of there being gaps in the fret. But that's, you know, 2 weeks of playing, it'll start matching again. First couple again with the angle. And I'm leaving a little bit open on each side, but again I have the taper, so it doesn't matter. It's not going to cut into the. It's not going to cut into it. Since we have the extension, I'm going to go ahead and do it right on the bench. And it's seated nicely everywhere. So that's it, you know, just go up the board and just keep pounding them in.